KoitCast.
Today's guest is a popular angel communicator, author and spiritual instructor. She is a traditional Reiki master and modern mystic who delights in distilling ancient wisdom into practical, down-to-earth tools for modern living. Please give a massive Koit welcome to Ann Albers. And now a quick request from me before the interview begins. Please can I ask you all to subscribe to this channel. It's very important as it helps me to attract new guests and to help this channel grow. Please also like, share the content and also comment on the videos. All these interactions will help my channel grow. Thank you ever so much. And now, over to the interview. Hi Ann, welcome to KoitCast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a treat. Summer Bacon spoke so highly of you after she was on your podcast and told me I should contact you. And
Lovely.
I told her
she also said the same thing about you, so that's a win.
Okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, I was like, I'm on Christmas vacation. But afterwards, anyhow, it's lovely to be here. And like I was saying to you before, and we'll see what transpires. Every time I get on an interview, I come with absolutely no expectations other than, my only wish is let's add something to the world that can help somebody on here.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, add something positive and creative. That's my sort of like.
Yeah, there's enough people peeing in the cosmic pool. We don't want to do that. Okay.
I need to first off say this to you. I like your necklace. You've got angel wings on already. So
Thank you. It was a Christmas gift, and I thought might as well put it on.
Yeah, how very, very apt. Well played.
Thank you.
Okay,
you.
so
Yeah.
let's start with then, in your own words, who are you? Where did you come from? What do you do, etc.
Who am I? Well, okay. Well, we'll give you the human answer first, okay?
Yeah.
Human answer, born and raised in the eastern United States as a very normal child, traditional religion, dad's a physicist, he still travels and does research. Mom, has had various intellectual jobs. And so I grew up pretty much in a normal situation. I was always extremely sensitive though. And I was told I had a very good imagination, because I had imaginary friends when I was a kid who I would talk to extensively about everything. And, looking back, I'm sure those were my angels kind of showing up in a way that a kid could understand it. But anyhow, it was a fairly normal situation. I grew up, I went to college, I became an avionics engineer for 8 years. Didn't love it. I was calling people into work on weekends and making their lives miserable, and not to mention 90-hour weeks for myself. And I thought,
stop it.
Yeah, we're not going to do this the rest of our lives. So I didn't know what to do. So I just said one simple prayer. I want to wake up happy, go to bed grateful, and help people and make a decent living. That's it. That's all I knew. And, the rest is history. Dreams, coincidences, books fell off the shelf in front of me. Teachers showed up, and I developed a closet interest in energy healing and intuition, and studied very quietly. I didn't want to tell my engineering friends what I was up to for obvious reasons back, especially being a female in the industry back when I started, that was weird enough. So I did this, and I told Spirit, let me know when to quit. And I actually heard voices outside my head one day that said, turn in your resignation tomorrow. Because I'd been really begging, please let me know when, because I'm thick-headed. And so I did. And I bawled. I was terrified, but I did it. And long story short, soon after I was given a job as psychic in the window at a bookstore where I hid behind the sign in the bookstore window because I didn't want anyone I knew to see me. And it took 3 years, but I got really busy. And, I've been doing it ever since. And it's a joy now. I really love it. I love teaching. I love sharing with people that life can be fun, actually. It doesn't have to be all drudgery and survival.
100% truth on that. Life is what you make of it. I know that's an old adage, but it's true. If you wake up with a good, positive attitude, you'll live your day like that. It's that simple, I think.
It is so much better. Yeah, and I'm laughing because I have this light that will occasionally flash when people are doing it.
What does that mean then to you?
Somebody's playing with us. I mean, I sometimes angels and guides and spirit will play with electricity. They'll flash lights. They'll, I used to have remember those old iPods way back before. Well, I had one loaded up with music, but it would randomly come on with playlists that I did not program into it that spelled out sentences with the names of songs.
Really? Oh, I like that.
We're
definitely going to get into this because I'm heavily into music and the messages that music can send us. So I'm going to write that down for later on when we talk about your AI music video as well.
Oh, God, yeah. Okay, that was new.
Sent over to me. So let me have a look at that iPod and messages through music. I'll write that down. Lovely. Okay, so I like to go right back to the beginning. Obviously, you give a brief synopsis of your life there.
Yeah.
You, I presume the imaginary friends were your introduction to the paranormal world. Is that what you would say?
Now I would, yes. At the time, they just seemed like real little people in my imagination that I would dialogue with. And it was just like kid dialogue, like what color do you think I should color this, and just really silly things. But they were very, very real to me, and they looked like happy animal characters, and that would talk to me. And
Okay, we need to dive into this. You're physically seeing them in the room, or not?
it was in my mind's eye, but it was so powerfully there in my mind's eye that it was as if what was in my head and outside of my head kind of were together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew I was seeing them inside of my mind, but they were so tangible and real to me. It was as if something in your imagination was so real that it just became part of your existence, even though you knew the difference between the things you could actually touch
Hmm.
and the things in your mind.
You know they
But
got that like.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry, go
You know
ahead.
they got that like virtual whatever on your mobile phone, and then it
Right.
appears in the room. Is it like that almost?
It felt like that, yeah. It felt like that. And I would even tell my mother, "Don't roll over, their feet with the supermarket cart." And my mother would go along with me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Wow.
But
Wow.
it felt very real to me, and they were just part of my life. I didn't really think anything different about myself at the time or anything like that.
Okay, so is it your mind projecting like a character, if you will, out and then it interacting with you, or is it something from somewhere else coming in and interacting with you?
No, yeah, great questions. What I have come to feel and understand, and again, this is just my way of interpreting it, is that there are so many things that exist in this world in so many dimensions, and they all have an energy signature, if you will, or an energy frequency that comprises them. And so our brains are interpreters of energy. If you think about it, everything you see is a wavelength of light that comes into your
Hmm.
eyes, and your brain turns it into a picture. And so I believe that these very real other dimensional beings were present to me, but that my brain was interpreting them as pictures that a child would understand.
I see. Have
I
you
tell
seen that?
people I'm like an iPhone for spirit.
Yeah.
Your phone takes an energy and turns it into pictures and words and all these things, and that's what our brains are capable of.
Yeah, I know. It's really amazing when you think of it because it's just sending images into my mind that you're projecting yourself further than your body out, almost like that. It's weird, but good.
No,
I
but
like
you're,
it.
but you're, you're right. We don't end. I mean, this physical body is what we see in the visible spectrum, but then we have all these invisible wavelengths as well that
Mm.
just keep going. For example, bees, I heard, can see the ultraviolet light around flowers, which is how they hone in on it. Where we can't see that stuff. Dogs
No.
can hear outside of the normal audio range. So there's so many more frequencies in the room around us than we pick up with our normal senses.
Oh, fair play. Have you seen that? There's a film that was recently released about imaginary friends. I can't remember what it's
Oh
called.
my God.
Have you seen it?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
Okay, I'll try and look it up and send you a link to it afterwards. This
Okay.
because I've forgotten.
Was it the one about all the girls' emotions?
No, that's
In
Inside Out. I think
Yeah,
this
that's right.
one. I'm sure it might have been either Ryan Reynolds or it doesn't matter. I'll look it up and
No,
send it to you because
but
that's
I
just
don't
an
think I saw
interesting
it.
thing.
Okay, no, I don't think I saw it. That sounds fun.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to see if you had seen it, how real that was to your scenario.
Yeah,
How
I'll have to
close
have
it
a look.
matched. But yeah, definitely, I'll definitely try and get you that link. So I'll write link to
Thank you.
movie. There
Yeah.
we go. So you see in Imaginary Friends, how did your gifts, if you will, progress from there?
Well, honestly, not much, because throughout my childhood, that was just kind of normal. And then as I got older, you kind of grow up and then you get kind of too cool for that stuff. And I remember, I think I was about, I'm guessing preteen. Also, I had this phenomena, we'll call it, of feeling like everything talked to me. Like I'd look at a rock and I'd hear the voices in my head say, "Could you move me, please? I'm bored." Okay.
Rocks.
And it was almost like the consciousness of things was communicating with me, and asking me favors all the time. And that was very cool when I was real little. But about age 11, I'm like, just shut up. I basically told all these voices that were bombarding me to just be quiet. I'm tired of moving you all around, And so I went through a period of time where I'll call it very normal, teenage years and into my early adult phase, where I really kind of tuned it out. I was sensitive. I could sense other people's feelings very easily, but I had really just decided I didn't want any of that, for a while. And it wasn't until probably my late 20s that all of a sudden I started craving that connection again with spirit. I had just become very normal religion, normal everything. And then all of a sudden, my life was changing. I realized I didn't love engineering. And I started wanting that connection back. And so it started coming back, dreams and visions and all sorts of crazy stuff. Guides, I know now are guides in my head giving me, thoughts and feelings that help me in my life. I am a firm believer we all have radar because we have a body, and this body picks up on all sorts of sensations and signals, and our brain is built to process energy. But like any other skill, we can develop that or not.
Sure. My girlfriend is also sensitive, and she tells me
Cool.
she turns it off, right? And so you've mentioned tuning out. How do you do that? What
Okay,
process is it by turning off or on? I don't get it.
I didn't understand the mechanism way back when, but now I understand that everything we experience is a matter of where we put our focus. So, for example, I would let other things in consciousnesses, if you will, like the rocks,
Hmm.
grab my attention, grab my focus. Well, when I tune out, I really am actually just tuning into other things, really. I'm choosing not to focus on these things. Like I equate it to this. Have you ever seen a mom with three kids around her on the phone? She's a very good selective tuner. you
Yeah, I
know?
see what you mean.
All these energies vying for her attention, but she's learned to focus on the thing that she wants to focus on instead of all the incoming signals from everywhere else.
Yeah,
So
and then they
it's a
all get
matter of
quieter, don't they? Even though they don't get quieter. Yeah.
right. You just kind of fade them into the background noise. So I've learned over time that when, as an empath, and there's so many who listen to this, this will be helpful. As empaths, we all learned the analogy of we take on other people's energies. It's not quite like that. We actually tune into them easily, and we have to learn to be very conscious tuners so that we feel what we want to focus on rather than what everybody else wants us to focus on.
Hmm.
If there's somebody who's having a problem, they want you to focus on their problem. Even if they're not
Yeah,
saying it out loud, they're oftentimes crying for help or attention or something.
I get it. And actually, it's rung a bell for me now a bit more. I get tinnitus quite bad in my ears, and when I went to an ear exam, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago, whenever it was, because I thought I'd lost my hearing, right?
Oh,
And
ouch.
it
Yeah.
was getting better. It was from a concert. It blew my eardrum out. Anyway, I'd gone to this place, and she said, "No, your hearing's all right." And I said, "I've got tinnitus." And she says, "Oh, how are you with that?" And I don't notice it because I focus it out. So
Yeah.
I'm in a way that's the same thing. Does that mean I have the skill to tune into spirit or not?
Yes. 100%. Yes. You've learned to choose what you're going to pay attention to. That's a really great skill in life because, for example, if I choose to pay attention to things that make me happy and elevate my spirit, then I'm going to hear spirit far better because spirit broadcasts on a frequency of love and joy and happiness. I mean, they're, the good ones. And the happier you are, the more you're going to hear those still small voices, that intuition. So if I'm focused on like what the news wants to feed me, for example, which is 90% of the time not too joyous,
Yeah.
that's just not the best space for me to do reading. So, I get up in the morning and I focus on something that elevates me. It can be a good song, it can be nature, in my backyard, it can be my breakfast. It doesn't matter. But something that makes me feel good because then I'm in the space to receive those higher, kinder, loving messages.
I like it. Yes. I'm with you on that. Now, I've got to ask a question about the rock thing.
Yeah.
And take this. My question is sincere in
Oh,
positivity
go
in the
ahead.
way I ask
I
it, but
probably
it's going to sound crappy.
don't
And you
worry.
know what I'm going to get at.
Go for it.
Was it when you were talking to the rocks, did you think, Christ, I'm mental here?
Yes, I did, honestly, really. And that's why I told all those voices to please shut up when I was a preteen, especially. But what I've come to understand is everything in the world has consciousness. And when I say consciousness, not like thinking and intellectual consciousness like you and I have, but some sort of state of being. And everything projects energy. Now, I would interpret that through my mind, no, maybe my mind was interpreting that rock is sat there forever and it's probably bored, so that may have been more my interpretation of that energy. I'll give you a very funny example. When I was a little older, I had a friend and we were going to go hiking, and okay, I'm kind of corny sometimes. Okay, we on this one hike, we named this old tree that was dead, Scary Tree. So we were going to go visit Scary Tree. He looked like a Halloween tree. It had a spirit. And as we're approaching this tree, we both separately and simultaneously heard a voice in our heads that said, "Go back now to the car. Go back to the car." And me being me, I'm impish. I'm like, "Can't we just visit you for a little bit?" "Okay, but make it quick." So we go up and we hug the tree. We're just being corny. And we turn around, and this cloud that had been nothing had blown up into a mega thunderstorm, to the point where we ended up running to the car and barely making it in by the time it all cut loose. Now, what the heck was that? A tree is in tune with its environment. It has sensors, so to speak, for the weather and all that. So this tree, not in a thinking way like you and I, but had perceived in some fashion weather. We're tuning into the tree. It's sensing the weather is coming into us as energy, and our brains are interpreting it as these words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I have a question here, because my brain would say it's not the tree speaking to you.
Yeah.
Maybe it was spirit in general,
Yeah.
like
Well,
going through that channel that makes you think it's the tree. I don't know. Is that right?
it's entirely possible. It was probably the entire environment around us, because nature, all of nature is connected that way. So I'm pretty sure you're right. But I mean, it was, we just interpreted it that way.
No, that's fair enough. I
Yeah.
didn't know whether, like you said, the rocks, the trees, the ground, everything, the
Yeah.
butterflies, everything has the consciousness to tell you things, or is it just something going through that funnel into that object to make it look as
Well,
if it's the object? Do you know what I mean?
yes, I do, because really it's all one big field.
Mm,
There's one big field and all these different patterns of frequency within it, and one pattern of frequency happens to be a rock that's just sitting there for eons.
mm.
But as I'm picking up the field, I'm somehow picking out different frequencies within the field and interpreting them through my brain. It has to. There's not a psychic or a channel out there that doesn't interpret through their own mind. You can't help it. That's your apparatus.
And that's the hard bit, isn't it? Because it means you're going to put your own thoughts and biases and whatever
Yeah,
onto it. And I always worry about this, is that I'm heavily into creativity, right? I do a lot of
yeah,
creativity in my
that's
life.
awesome.
What is me and what is there?
And there's really no separation in the greater scheme of things. Let me see if I have this diagram. I should have. I hope I do. Oh yeah, I do. I had it for someone else. Okay. So years ago they showed me this little diagram, if I can,
Hmm.
that if you go out into the infinite, we're all connected. If we all look like these little ice cream cones,
Yeah.
the tip might be here's me and here's you, and we look at each other and we look separate. But as we expand our consciousness into the more and more that we are, meaning you get quieter, you start to relax a little, you stop by, like in a meditation, for example, you're not as identified with the personal self, which might be the tip of the ice cream cone. That's my individual self. In a meditation, we're pulling back and starting to relax into the greater self, where we're all connected. So is it you? Is it spirit? Honestly, I think we're pulling from the all that is and funneling it through our interpretation and molding it through our personality when we bring creativity through.
Well, I like that then, because that suggests that I have some impact.
Oh boy, do you ever. Yes. In fact, that's one of the reasons we come to Earth, because we come to Earth to take this raw material, if you will, this infinite love, if you want to call it, the source energy, divine consciousness. There's so many words, the field. But we come to take that raw energy and decide how we want to manifest it into the physical through our own creativity. And a lot of people do it unconsciously, and I did too when I was younger, but now I'm more deliberate that if I want something in my life, I'll sit and focus on how's it going to feel. I tune into it deliberately. I'm sure you've heard of Esther Hicks' law of attraction. She's the biggest voice for this
I haven't
understanding.
actually. No, no.
Oh, okay. Well, Esther Hicks is a real famous channel here in the US, and she has brought forth work called the law of attraction. Now, before I knew of her, my angels were calling it vibrational law. Same thing. But the bottom line is, if this is an infinite field, like frequency soup, that we exist in, as we start to tune into things, we literally start to receive them in the same way that when you use your remote to tune into a television station, you're going to receive that broadcast. And they start to actually show up in your life. So, for example, funny story. I once decided I wanted a patio table that was too expensive for me in the catalog. So I sat there and I imagined it in my backyard and I thought about, well, what do I want to pay? No more than $15, not 200, and just let it go. 2 months later, I'm driving home from a trip past the thrift store and I got the very strong urge to go into the thrift store where there's my patio table for $15 and it only needed a bolt, to fix it up. So I tuned into it. The universe waited until there was a good match and then guided me straight to it.
I do like these things. That suggests we have massive power, or the universe is using us for some reason. I love it.
Well, we are bringing this raw stuff into the physical world in a very unique and beautiful way. Every time you sit down to create, whatever you create, whatever, whether it's a mother creating a good meal for her kid, or whether it's you creating music, every time we're drawing from that, I'll call it pure potential, and we're starting to mold it into something very tangible and physical that's never been done exactly that way.
Are we like
We're
lenses, like
yeah,
focusing stuff into something?
yeah, we're the ones bringing things into the manifest creation. We're part of creation if you think of it that way.
Mm. It's
We're
still
we're
mind expanding and blowing, and I'm going to branch off from this a bit
sure.
later on. But I first want to get back into your pre-angel work life, with your avionics and stuff like that. So your work life, did you just go straight into avionics, or did you do anything else prior?
No, I graduated from the University of Notre Dame and I moved to Arizona, USA, and I got a job with Honeywell, which was working on airplanes at the time. So I
Hmm.
worked on, for example, the computers that interpret the sensor data and that help to steer the plane. And I got to go on flight tests. I got to
Oh, nice.
stand on the fold down stewardess seat and look over the pilots and, while they flew around and did the test flights. And I loved that part. I just didn't like the 90-hour work weeks and you know, it was intense. It was a period of time when they were laying people off and working us harder.
Oh, yes, I've been there, done that. Don't like it. Were you in
No,
charge of people
I was not officially in charge, but yet I was given the title integration manager, which
without
meant
the
I was
pay? Yeah.
responsible for a lot of things. Yeah, but not the title and the pay. Yeah.
Yeah. That there's something about, I don't know, this your style of life, and I'm trying to focus this down a bit more on how you live your life. As in, you had a bit at the beginning, as in a bit of glimpse of the other world, call it. Then you
Yeah.
went into hardcore human life, worked really hard in some measure of scientific logical field, and then thought, excuse me, bugger this, I need to go in back to the
That's a nice
well,
version. Yeah.
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 And a lot of the people I speak to follow that almost same path. Why?
I think it's because we come into this world with all of our abilities and predispositions and gifts and whatever, like a kid who comes into the world wanting to be a singer usually sings a lot when they're a kid. So we come in very pure and unadulterated, and then we get a bit indoctrinated with human life, where we learn what's cool, what isn't cool. We learn what we need to do to make a living and what we don't, and we start to buy into that stuff. And I think that we all try to be normal, we all try to fit in. It's kind of a human drive to try to find your tribe, so to speak, fit in. So we try that. But sooner or later your original nature starts to pop up again. You can't squash it down too long. If you had some desire as a soul before you came to earth, it's just not going to be quiet. It's going to keep popping up within you, something that's driving you towards what you really want to do on this earth.
Hmm.
And so that's why, there's some things you just can't shake out of your head, like the creative vibe, for example, creative energy. I get cranky if I don't do something creative frequently. And I mean, I love my work. I love talking to angels, but if I don't create something, it can be, I have two Etsy stores and lately this whole thing started happening with the music. If I'm not creating something, it's almost like I feel clogged up. It's like that energy wants to flow through you.
Yeah,
And it's
I'm the
like that
same.
for, there are other people who have other interests, that whatever's in a person, whatever they really wanted to carry into this life, it just keeps popping up. It won't go away.
What about
And
the people who take those 90-hour week jobs and then forever stay there and they don't break out of that shell? What's going on with them, do you think?
well, they have to do one of two things. Either they have to really embrace it and accept it, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do my best and enjoy it, in which case they can be okay with it. Or They're just settling, one or the other. The angels say the most important thing is that whatever you're doing, line your mind up with it. Because the worst thing on earth is to do something that you don't feel good about, because then you have energy that's like in two directions. You're like making yourself do this, but you're wanting to do that. They said if you're going to do something you don't want to do, find a reason to love it. It's like that song, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. It's really important that we either choose to allow for change, and we don't have to make all the changes ourselves. We can, like I said, put it up to spirit, see how things show up, follow the little inklings as you go along. But if you don't create change or accept where you're at, one or the other, you're going to be uncomfortable your whole life. You'll develop problems. This is why
Yeah.
people addict. One of the reasons why people addict sometimes. One of the reasons why people complain a lot. They don't feel life is fair, but they just don't know yet that there are ways that you can partner with spirit to have things appear in your life where you don't know how you're going to get there. For example, years ago, I wanted to be a writer. I just knew that. I liked to write when I was a child. I wrote a story when I was in first grade, and I decided I was going to be a writer because the class liked it. Anyhow, so I put it out to the universe. Well, I wrote my first book after I quit engineering, got all excited, submitted it to numerous publishers, and got rejected over and over and over. Finally, I wrote to one, and I said, why am I getting rejected? It's a good book. It was ballsy. Anyhow, and she wrote back and she says, you just don't have any fame or experience in your field, and we need sure bets. We need people that are going to bring us. Oh, okay, fine. So I just put it on the shelf and waited until one year Spirit gave me the poke and said self-publish. And it was like, oh, nirvana. So I self-published, and it was beautiful. I ended up being invited to speak at a conference where people like Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson were speaking, real big names. And, Dorothy wasn't in Kansas, but it was a lot of fun. And it was at a time in my life where I could handle something like that. It didn't go to my head. I didn't start feeling pressure to perform in public, now that I had a book out. And it was just so lovely, and it really ended up being just part of my life, not taking over me.
Sure. So that creativity was just basically put on hold till a time where you had the tools to be able to express that creativity.
Exactly. And after 2020, I was going nuts. I had worked really hard, because anyone in the service profession was just, full time and overtime. And I was like, I need some balance. I need my creativity back. Well, out comes AI. They bring AI to my attention. Well, I start messing around with AI art generators and making cute little characters late at night. Well, then stories start popping in my head. Well, all of a sudden I got a children's book out that I spent hours editing in Photoshop, like getting rid of 5 legs on creatures and things like that.
Oh yeah, AI has a habit of doing that.
Oh yeah. So it took a lot of work, but I was consumed by it because it was so much fun. And then I did that. And then all of a sudden it's like, I want to make a coloring book. So then I made a coloring book. Then I made a mandala book. And I'm all over the map lately. I mean, people say, what are you up to? I'm like, well, I don't know. Whatever grabs my attention this week. I'm making t-shirts now.
But that's okay, though, isn't it? Finger in many pies.
And clip art late at night for crafters. So, I mean, I'm really just living by heart. And I mean, I do have my full-time angel work too. And I do the real, quote, serious work. And I really help people through their grief and their life transitions. But I need the balance. So we just follow this creative flow in our lives. And if you can really trust it, like to the people who are working these long weeks and want to create change but don't know how, take just a minute a day and just imagine, what would it feel like to get up happy and go to bed grateful? That's all I did. Just imagine it. Just try, see if you can find the feeling. Think of yourself as a little remote control, and you're trying to dial into that feeling. For people who remember dials, anyhow, sorry.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask that question. What could people do in that position to get out of it, to hit the creative? So it's just focus on what you want, the feeling or whatever.
Yeah, and then let it go and go about your day and try to find whatever joy you can in your days, to try to keep yourself as elevated as possible. And you'll find eventually you start getting a little urge to check something out, or to read a book, or to talk to somebody. And it's like a little trail of breadcrumbs half the time. And I've seen a lot of lives change when people stop trying so hard to overthink it, and they just really dial in a bit more with their feeling senses. Let it go, enjoy your day, wait for the inspirations. And that's why I do everything I want now. I wait for inspiration and then I hop on it.
You ride that inspiration train, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because then, I mean, granted, I'm not inspired to do taxes, but I have to do them anyhow. So I
Yeah.
find a way to have fun. Okay, turn on good music or something. That's a case of when you're stuck doing something you don't want to do, but you got to do it. Okay, I have to get creative and find a way to enjoy this.
Yeah, I
And I
know what you
really
mean.
do.
I farm my taxes out. I ain't doing them things.
So, so it's just about a balance in life of doing what we must do, but finding ways to enjoy it to the best of our ability, and then trying to allow yourself to dream a bit and not. The angels say people guarantee their disappointment rather than risk their happiness.
That's it. That's why people stick in jobs that they don't really like, and I'm guilty of that across the years. But
I get
maybe
it.
I wasn't in the position to move at that point.
Yeah, I think, for example, when I was in engineering, I would have quit 2 years into it probably, but I didn't have the skill set that I needed to manage my own business and the time management, and I hadn't done enough leadership role in that company to learn what I needed to do, to be on my own. So there was a lot of things that I needed to learn before I could go and do what I'm doing now logistically. Like I could, I was always intuitive, but managing it as a human business too, with all the
Mm,
logistics you've got to manage and juggle. I really had to juggle an awful lot of that job, but it really made me good at juggling. So I mean, I'm able to like go between the human and the spirit world very easy now.
yeah. There's always again, I've said this to a lot of people, and they've said it to me more actually than I've said it to them. Is that each thing you do in your life is a step for a
Yeah,
reason and teaching you a skill for the point you're at where you need it. And
yeah,
it's
you're
weird to think
100%.
of it that way, but it's right. It's almost like a fate path.
Absolutely. One thing comes to mind. I had a client years ago who had a very rich father who was very difficult. But anyhow, when he passed, the estate dragged on forever. And she really was hoping to get her money and do all these things with her life. But during the course of that dragging on phase, she learned so much about money management. She learned so much and she grew inside of herself and she learned who was a real friend and who wasn't a real friend. And had she gotten the money right away, she probably would have given half of it away just to make people happy and not managed it well. But because the delay was there and it was over a year, she became really adept at knowing how to spend wisely, how to invest wisely, and it carried her through the rest of her life.
Hmm.
And that was a
Yeah,
case of what you're saying, that every little
yeah,
step, is the universe is always attempting to help us, whether we go kicking and screaming or not. I mean, there have been times in my life when I was so mad I didn't get a prayer answered, and then I look back and go, "Thank you, thank you. You knew better than I, and that wasn't really what I was asking for."
yeah. And I think this sums it up. I spoke to a lady called Ingrid Honkala a few months ago, and she said things don't happen to you; they happen for you, and that's stuck with me since because it's very apt. I
It
think.
really is. I put signs up around my house at times that say "Trust everything." Trust, trust everything is somehow trying to bump you back on your path. I think of it like water. Water will go along a path of least resistance, but it sometimes butts up against, a rock wall or something. Well, we do too at times. We feel like we're butting up against something. It's just steering us, down a slightly different course. One of my favorite things the angels ever said to me was rejection is redirection.
Yeah,
Loved that because it's so true. It's like, when you don't get the job or you don't get the house or you don't get the person or you don't get whatever you thought you wanted, that's the universe saying, there's better. Come on, let's go this way.
yeah,
It's not
yes.
cruel. It's actually trying to help us.
But most people won't think of it that way because
Oh, I
they
do.
don't think bigger picture. They're thinking, oh, aren't they?
Well, yeah, once I was just whining and whining when I was younger. Anyhow, I was whining and whining about not getting something I wanted. And the angels say, you are like a 2-year-old asking for a cookie and screaming for a cookie. And we're saying, we've got the meal, we've got dessert, we've got everything waiting for you. Just hold on a minute. And they said, but you're over there going, no, I want the cookie now. And there you go.
Is it a good
Exactly what.
cookie? I mean, is it triple chocolate chip?
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't anything at the time, but I mean,
You
it's
got
like
it
the
later
Martian.
though.
Yeah, I got better, but I mean, it's that metaphor of sometimes we're so impatient for something, and yet the universe is trying to build something so much better for us.
And I like that again. Well played. Which then gives us a nice segue into who or what are the angels?
Okay, they would say that they're really not any different from us, other than the fact that, A, they're not in the physical dimension. and B, they're eternally connected to that love that sources us all. So they're connected with that love. They don't have any blocks or feelings of separation from it. And again, they've given me analogies. They said if you could think of all of us like waves on an ocean of energy, we're connected to that giant field, if you will, all of us. It's within us. We feel separate. I look at you, I feel separate, but they just know their connection to that field at all times. They know that you and me and them are all swimming in the same field, so to speak, all coming from it. So they have a sense of the interaction and connectedness of all things and all beings. So, for example, if they're giving someone guidance, there's an awareness that's way beyond the mental somehow that I don't understand yet, that there's a desire for everybody to win. So, for example, one person will never get guidance that would harm another. It's
Say that
always
bit again, sorry.
They said the angels are always looking at the connectedness and the interconnectedness of all of us.
Yeah.
And so they would never give a person guidance that would harm another's soul, ever. It's always a win-win with them.
Okay.
For example, you get a sudden urge to just go over and buy an ice cream cone, and you run into somebody in line who's absolutely wonderful, and they tell you, oh gosh, I just needed this today, and you needed whatever they offered you. And there's this mutual upliftment that happens every time you receive that guidance, because they're beings that live in that constant state of awareness of how interconnected we all are. Constantly connected to, whatever we call the divine, the presence of love, the field.
Not to do some whataboutery, but what about the people who suddenly become arses in that queue for the ice cream that decide to punch the next guy? What's happening there? Is that an individual or influence?
Yeah, usually that's them really being in a bad space. But if you're in a really happy space, one of two things will happen. Your frequency isn't going to match that, so you'll either go on and have a good day and ignore them completely. Like I tend to, I'll tell you another story in a minute, but anyhow, you tend to just not even tune into that stuff. Or you end up somehow infiltrating their consciousness with something good and they actually feel better. But if you can stay in your own lane, so to speak, in your own better frequency, they're not going to tug you down. You're either going to raise them up or repel them, one or the other.
Yes.
I had friends years ago, and they had a man move in next door who was an ex-felon. He was out of prison, but he was vulgar and nasty and mean and, just picking on them all the time. And so we started praying for him, basically, imagining him surrounded with light, imagining him happy, just staying in our very positive space. And long story short, he didn't want any of that. So within 4 months, he foreclosed and moved out. If you bombard somebody obnoxious with light, they're going to do one of two things: be nicer or leave your life.
What makes that person then choose not to accept positivity? This is what I don't understand, because if there's angels trying to help influence for us to make the right decisions, why are there people that make the wrong ones?
Well, we do have free will, and sadly, some people, through whatever childhood circumstances, through whatever they've lived in past lives, don't yet believe in the goodness of the universe, don't yet believe in love, don't believe they could have anyone care about them. And they get very angry, and the reason they're angry is they're so far off from the perspective of their own spirit. When we're lined up, like I said earlier, when we're lined up with our spirit, we feel great. Our spirit's looking at possibilities and looking at mutually harmonious interactions and looking at what we can create and looking at who can come to help us. So our spirit's always looking at, our spirit is more of how can we do this, helping us. But for a person who's sitting there constantly saying nothing good ever happens for me, it's not going to happen for me, it's a miserable life, here's their soul's perspective, here's their perspective. That just feels bad. They're separating themselves from the love that wants to help them because maybe they just don't have the experience of it enough to believe in it yet. And that's why the angels are constantly telling me, just be kind to those folks. You don't have to hang out with them and, take them to tea. But at the same time, be kind, because really they're hurting. Even the people in the universe that we see on the news or whatever that we just don't like, they said, imagine just surrounding them with light. They need it the most. Some of the people creating the most chaos in the world are really the most fearful and hurting. Now, that doesn't mean we should snuggle up, or anything.
I always find this aspect of spirituality and everything the hardest to grasp, because you and I, right, and probably a load of the people listening to this will think
Yeah,
positively and want to be
as much
nice to
as
people, etc.
possible.
I
Yeah.
don't understand the crappy people. I don't. I
Well,
don't get it.
and thank God you don't really. I mean, honestly, thank God that's not your reality. But just from doing reading so long and tuning into a variety of human beings, I mean, the people that come to me are more wanting the positive, but they've asked me to help them understand quite a lot of other people. And the hurting souls out there, they're just so disconnected. They're just so afraid. They're almost like trapped animals in a way, who are in a survival mode, and they feel like they've got to put other people down to feel up. And I honestly believe it has a lot to do with dopamine in the brain. I'm not a chemist, but I mean, I do believe it's dopamine is one of the chemicals we release when we feel like we've achieved something. And
Okay.
so for people who are really insecure or really don't feel like much inside of themselves for whatever reason, childhood, past lives, you name it, their ex, but when they don't feel good about themselves, they're going to go for that chemistry that makes them feel a little bit better. And you can achieve it through actually accomplishing something if you believe you can, through sex, through winning an argument, through getting angry. So there are various good and not so good ways that people can give themselves that chemical that makes them feel slightly successful. And nobody
Yes.
thinks about that. Nobody says, "Oh God, I need a dopamine drip. Let me yell at the guy in traffic." You know.
Mm.
But there is a chemistry that's not as woo woo as we might think. There really is a physiological basis that if you feel capable of accomplishing things or capable of doing something that makes you feel good, well, you'll do that because that feels better. But if
It
you,
leads that leads me to two more questions though, right? Which is the first of which these people, well, let's just call them murderers.
yeah,
The people who do all sorts of assaulting things, really horrible people. Shouldn't the angels help them more, or are they
they
cut
are
off from
trying.
them, therefore they can't help them?
Well, let's put it this way: the angels are bombarding them with light, sending them light, trying so hard to reach them with anything positive at all. But frequently, they're in such a low vibration that the angels' vibrations up here and their vibrations here. It's like AM and FM. They've tuned it out. They've tuned out love. They've tuned out anything good. And this is why I'm not super religious, but I did grow up
Hmm.
Catholic, And whenever the Virgin Mary appears to humanity, she always says, "Pray for the lost souls." And I'm a firm believer now that that is because she understands that there are people on this earth who don't believe in the love from the heavens. They're so far removed from it that possibly if the kind souls who are closer to their frequency band would pray for them, that, maybe it will get in. Just maybe.
And when they call them lost souls, is that because they're out of touch of the radar, so to speak?
They really are, yeah. They're really, they don't believe in love. They don't believe in anything good. It's very sad. Usually these are people who are either abused or terrified as children, or they've had past lives that created terror. And they're really trying. This is why it's so important to be kind to people. And again, you don't have to snuggle up with them, but just be kind, have good wishes for them. Because you never know. You might be the one that shows somebody an act of kindness that is suddenly the thing in their existence that makes them start to believe in something good. You
Yeah,
just
there's
never
always
know.
path adjustments, and they're out there, and one of
Yeah,
those could be you, the nudge. Yeah, I like
right.
that as well. I want to ask another question about the field. Um, are these beings, energetic beings, individuals, but within a field, or are they all the same being?
Okay, I love this question. Yeah. They would say that we are points of consciousness and perspectives and points of view within a unified field. But they would say we are too. So, like the waves on the ocean,
Hmm.
each wave is very unique, but nonetheless, it is the ocean. It can't be separate from it. So the angels would say, if you think of us as points of consciousness within this eternal field, we know ourselves as individual points of consciousness with perhaps different personalities, different
Yeah,
specialties. I'm using human words, I'm searching for words. But they also know their complete rootedness and interconnectedness in that oneness, in that one field. So their experience, I've only had an experience of this a few times where, and meditators and yogis will try to talk about it, but one of the times I was just driving, and I tend to go into very deep spaces when I'm driving because I like driving, you know, Arizona's nice. We get open road and mountains and all that.
Nice.
So I'm driving, and all of a sudden, I am having, I'll call it distributed consciousness. That's the best I can say it.
What,
Where
where you tune out and yours is an autopilot? That is that what you
I'm
mean?
feeling what it feels like to be Anne. I'm feeling what it feels like to be the tires going. I'm feeling what it feels like to be the road. I'm feeling what it feels like to be those mountains in the distance, but like all at once. And it's so difficult to put into words, but
Mm.
it was literally as if I was experiencing, I just have to call it distributed consciousness, like different different experiences of all the parts of that equation. It was really something. And another time I had, been coming home from teaching a class where I was talking about this more deeply, and I was just blissed out, totally happy, feeling very connected. And I was walking through the airport, and as I looked into the eyes of everyone, I thought, there's me, there's me, there's me, but not the me and self, but the deeper presence that lives within us all. It was like the presence behind the eyes was connecting with the presence behind the eyes of everyone else. Now, I don't run around like that most of the time, but it was really something because I was just feeling all blissed out. Like, there's that person scowling. Oh, I could see me in their eyes, Just,
That's weird, isn't it? But also highly
yeah.
quality.
Oh, it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, could this just last forever? Because at that point, I understood the phrase "love your enemies" because nobody was an enemy. It was just like there's just this field moving through all these people, and some know it, and some don't, and the ones that don't are pretty pissy. But is what it is.
Question then for you: if
Yeah,
that's the state that you find yourself in at that point, were you said you saw into people's eyes and then like recognized you in there, so to speak?
yeah.
Did you also see out from their eyes?
Not at that point. No, I have once been so merged with somebody. I was in a reading, and somebody
Hmm.
was really trying to understand someone in their life who had been very, 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 very difficult to them. And I had the experience. I mean, I often empath with them, but I literally had the experience of seeing through this being's eyes and understanding life through their eyes. And I do that by degrees in most sessions because I really have to just align my energy field, if you will, with whoever I'm tuning into. And I start to experience what it's like to be them. But this was a full on sense of, almost like I was them. It was very
Mm.
interesting.
Like that aspect of a life review without being in the life review.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Interesting.
you get it. Yeah, and one thing I play with, I've done this in some of my classes. It's this is just again, I create visual metaphors for really the movement of energy. Because how do you describe, becoming a wave and moving yourself?
Yeah.
So I'll tell people, imagine, you're going as energy and you're kind of merging with, say, your favorite animal or something. And just take a moment and just think about that animal and think about what it would be like to be them. Just ask the question, what would it be like to be them? And you'll actually start tangibly getting feelings about what it's like to be that animal or that thing or whatever. We do a little exercise in one of my classes where we just pick something in the room, and I have people playfully, like kids, say, okay, I'm that stained glass window. I'm very colorful. I'm kind of, cold on the outside. And after a while, they'll get into it and they'll start actually sensing what it's like to be that thing because they're tuning themselves into it by thinking about it, by focusing on it.
See,
So,
what my question would be: how do we know that they are turning themselves, in theory, into that thing, rather than just logically thinking about all the things that could impact that thing?
right. That's a good question. And there's a fine line because as you start to think about something and imagine it, that's you at first. But after a while, when you really tune yourself into it, it's almost like when you tune into a radio station finally and you hit that point at which you're just receiving its signal. You're not trying so hard to dial in.
Hmm.
So it's a very fine line, but there's an experiential quality to it where it almost feels very visceral.
I'll
Like you,
have to take your word for it because I don't know. I've never experienced it
yeah, no,
myself.
that's just what, people tell me and I've experienced is that it becomes almost visceral. I I once woke up out of a dream in which I had somehow merged consciousness with whatever a jaguar is. And out of
Nice.
my mouth comes this, "Ah," I can't even do it now. And at the
That
time
was
I
a
had a
crow,
dog.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was something else. See what happens when I try to do it. But it was very real. And at the time I had a dog, and that dog woke up out of a sound sleep and started, just giving me the what for, and then looked at me like, what? You know? So I am assuming the dog probably saw something that appeared to be like that spirit of a jaguar or something. And then it was just a very interesting thing that, this dog who was usually very calm when I talked and joked and sang and do whatever I do, just went ballistic.
Well, speaking of animals, then this the unified field, whatever it is, where we're all points on that ocean of
Yeah,
consciousness. Animals, they're that as well. Insects,
everything,
trees, rocks, literally everything.
everything. Yeah. And the more we're aligned with that feeling of connectedness and goodness and love and all that, the happier we are. And the more we feel disconnected and separate and not connected to something good and giving life to us, that will feel terrible. But yeah,
So,
everything's part of that.
a question. This piece of lapis lazuli, I think it is,
Oh,
that
nice.
I was advised to get by a previous guest. This has a point of consciousness in it, like me, like you,
Right. It
and
doesn't have
so
a
at
brain.
some stage that's going to report back its findings. Is
Yeah,
that
well,
how it works?
it has an experience. It's an energy, crystallized energy, if you think of it that way. If you go to quantum physics, everything's a particle or a wave. So,
Hmm.
theoretically, everything solid is a collection of waves, really. So it's having an energetic experience. It's got a point of consciousness, if you will. It's not a thinking brain like you and me, but it has an experience that registers in its energy field. And likewise, it is, because it is comprised of energy, it's also transmitting its experience. And again, not like you and I thinking and talking and all that, but emanating a field itself of energy that we can interact with. I mean, there are people out there who can literally use their mind to tip over things, pieces of paper and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I only did that once. I never had success again. But anyhow, I was
Well, you're gonna have to tell me that once at some stage. So just keep that in there.
okay. Yeah, just well, I had seen this online class, and the guy said take a piece of tinfoil and fold it up. Make sure there's no drafts. Make sure everything's completely still, and just try to imagine you are that foil and you're falling over. I thought, well, that's up my alley. And so I did the Forrest Gump thing, like I can do this, and boom, that thing just started wiggling, and then it goes over, and I'm like, oh my god. Well, then I got in my head, and I've never been able to do it ever since, because now I'm trying to make it as a separate object move, instead of just merging with it. And it's like I know the theory, but I'm in my own way.
Yeah, I like that
So
as well. I'm in my own way. I hear that quite a lot as well.
yeah, because I just can't get my brain out of the way with that one yet.
I
I
think
mean,
that's
maybe
me.
I'll play with it again. Yeah, maybe I'll play. I just haven't had time to play with it, but it was fun because it was just a demonstration to myself that yeah, this stuff works.
Quality. Um, Another question then you should be able to answer, but it is a weird one. How do you know that they are angels?
The only thing I can tell you is that it feels like love. It feels resonant with me. It feels harmonious with me. I have felt other spirits who are what I'd call disconnected souls. Some people call them demons, whatever. These are just souls that are disconnected. And they feel kind of scritchy. They feel like staticky and uncomfortable. And there's usually like what I call advice with an agenda. Angels never boss you around or tell you what to do. They just give you impulses that feel good to you. When an angel's giving you guidance, you're just going to feel like doing something that feels good. It doesn't feel like against your nature. For example, I'm just going to be generic about this out of respect for a person involved. But there's a person I've known who has heard other voices. We'll put it that way, and voices that will say, "Go do things that are harmful to themselves."
Yeah,
And and I'm telling them that's not angelic. Angelic voices are always something that feels positive and loving and kind to yourself. So
I
it's
I get it.
the bottom line is if it feels like love, it's love, and if it feels like something else, it's probably something else.
You mentioned something there about the demons that are separate, not connected. I think was the
Yeah.
term you used.
Well, they're
Are
the ones that
is
don't know. They don't know they're connected.
Do they
You
exist
can.
in the same place but just aren't connected literally to the ocean? Is that what it is?
Well, they're connected. Like my hands. Okay, all 10 fingers are connected to my hands. I'm lucky. Okay, but what if this one didn't know it? What if this one didn't think it was connected to the hand, and the hand goes to pick up a piece of fruit, and this one's like, that's mine, that's mine. You see how hard that is? I'm separate. I don't want to share. I need to get my share. Instead of realizing that what's good for all of us is good for all of us. So it's more like that, that the lost souls, if you will, regardless of
Hmm.
which side they're on dimensionally, they're still connected in their source, because you can't have an existence without that connection.
Oh, I see. I get it now.
But they don't know about it, so they act like they're separate. They act like there's nothing supporting them. They act like they have to grab what they can, so to speak, or kill whoever they want to kill to be safe, or any of these other million horrible things.
And that's what you put demons down to being, is the same energetic stuff, but just a different mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It really, just the ones that don't really know their connection and don't feel like anything's there to support them, and feel like, I'm just out here to grab what I can and survive.
Mm. Now, the
But when
next
you,
question I have for
no,
you is, you might have already answered it technically with what we've already gone
that's
over,
okay.
but I've put this in. Where do angels fit in to the cosmic scheme of things? Now, and I'm saying angels because that's the term that you
Yeah, I'm
use in
just
your
using
life, but they're this field, aren't they? Field beings.
think of them as a nervous system. Okay, I'm just gonna, again, I got to use analogies because this is such a reality that's beyond a
Oh, I
brain.
need it anyway, so thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you could think of, we'll call it divine mind, or the field's consciousness as the brain. Well, the angels would be like the nervous system that carries signals back and forth between that, the operator, in a
Hmm.
way, and these individual cells that are like us, who are making requests all the time. Like if you accidentally have a little cut in your finger, all those cells are screaming, help, we need nutrients, we need help, we need, all these things to clot all this. And the nervous system is going to the brain, and the brain's sending signals what to do next to the entire system. So every cell in the body is like a little person that's making a request all the time for what it needs. And all the time, the nervous system is carrying those signals, the chemistry in the body is carrying those signals, the brain's reading the state of the union, so to speak, and giving back signals. It's a very distributed consciousness in your body, for example. So the angels say, think of us almost like the nervous system in the universe, that we're helping to carry that love and that healing and that help and that, these higher qualities into your life per your request. Now, the request isn't always verbal. Sometimes the request is just the energy we're emanating, right? We're wishing for something better, or you have a rough day and you're just, oh, I just need some rest. Well, they're trying to find ways to help you rest the minute you're wishing it. Like that cell, you've made a request, they're on it. And that's why I tell people, you don't have to beg. These are not people. These are not people that you have to sit there and justify why you want something. You don't have to make a case. You just, the minute you want something, they're just on it. That's part of their function in the greater scheme of creation.
We're going to have to get into this. So, greater scheme of creation. This is probably slightly ahead of where I had this in my list, but
Oh,
sod it,
that's
we're
okay.
doing it now. um,
Hey, we'll dance.
right, you gave the analogy of the body and the nervous system, etc., etc. Is the universe just a big being, and that is the case that they are the nervous system and we ourselves?
I love that. Let me see what anybody wants to say about that. They said that's a very good way of looking at it. Only it's an expanding being. It's not static. It's, like, here's our body. It's growing new cells. Cells are dying, but we're pretty self-contained. Most of our lives. But they said, but the universe is in an ongoing expansion, and the field, if you will, is constantly expanding. And they said, and humanity is part of that. Humanity comes and takes that raw stuff and wants to make new things out of it. They said, you can think of it like a body that is constantly becoming something newer and younger and better and more capable. They said, we're just using an analogy here, but they said you're onto something. But they said it is a little different, only in the sense that it just keeps expanding.
This expansion, that throws me to another question that, again, I haven't written down, but I've always had it with me, is that, like the human population grows, we're at, what, 8 billion now? Let's just say we get to 10 billion. If there's, is that ocean got an endless point for a new point of that to go into somebody, soul or whatever?
Yeah, well, they say that it's pretty infinite, and they said, and it's hard to wrap the mind around as a human being, because of course, we're used to the material where there's there's X many resources, all that.
Hmm.
But the angels say if there's more souls than the earth can accommodate, they said there will be new dimensions of earths created for other souls.
Does that mean then that the field, you said it's expanding, does that mean it's reproducing, essentially making new versions of the consciousnesses, or not?
Yeah, they're saying yes. He said they're trying to come up with a human way to share more about this. One analogy they've used with me is if you look at like the television programming, there are so many different programs we can watch and experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to us what we want to tune into. Well, they said if you think of this field of infinite potential, it's infinite potential. There's so many realities that we can live, create, call into form. And they said, and so really it's all of the inhabitants of the universe deciding what they want next that start to create more and more and more out of this infinite field of potential.
It's hard to wrap your mind around it because we go into numbers and limits, and
well, yeah,
it seems like there is no limit.
Here we are in a solid physical universe where there are limits in the physical, right?
Yeah.
As far as we know, and it is very challenging to start thinking of ourselves as not as physical as we look, as beings of energy. I once asked, Archangel Michael, another point of consciousness that people are familiar with. I said, how is it you can appear to so many people and help so many people all at once? It's a reasonable question. Mm-hmm. He said, think of me like a collection of notes in a song, and anyone who sings a song can have the song present with them. If a song is like, music, a song is a collection of frequencies, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, frequencies are not physical things. And so they can be reproduced, as many people as want to sing a song can sing the song and experience the song and have the vibrational results of that song. And the angels say, if you could think of us as all of us as a collection of frequencies, they said, when someone calls on, quote, Archangel Michael, they're calling up this frequency that he is, that frequency of protection and strength and truth from within that field, and they will have an experience of that. So again, we're trying so hard to merge the worlds of physical and energy, and it's hard. And I don't claim to be an expert on doing it. I'm doing my best, but they give me these analogies so I can even begin to nibble around the edges of understanding it.
No, and it makes sense. I like the analogies. It's just so hard to wrap around because it's something there that can't compare with here.
Yeah, I know. It's like being an ant on a sidewalk trying to comprehend the whole lawn.
Yes, it's impossible.
It's pretty big. And the angels say, but what is possible? They said is to comprehend the feeling of love and to comprehend the feeling of goodness and truth. And, if you got that, good enough. Because then you feel that connection with the field. You don't necessarily feel every little part of this massive expanded creation. That would be nearly impossible. It was I think it was the last Raiders of the Lost Ark. There was a female character at the end. She kept saying, I want to know everything. I want to know everything. I want to know everything. And these ETs surrounded her and blasted her with light until she turned into light so she could know everything. Because the only way to know everything is become the light,
Yeah.
and lose the individual point of consciousness in a way.
It's also sad because I'm the exact same person. I want to know everything.
Yeah.
But I can't. I hear. I can't hear.
You can know. Well, on Earth, it's hard because the minute you have one question, that the questions have babies,
Every single one.
For me, it's like the minute I learn something, I've got 1,000 more questions, And
well, then that's a very good question then, which makes me think this or about you. Mm-hmm. If you're putting out a question that you have, right, and you get an answer from there to you, why does that not mean that you're going to be spending all your time just dialoguing? Because like you said, every question branches off. Wouldn't you be there like for hours straight just talking back and forth?
Honestly, when I first started, I was, because I was so intellectual. I mean, I was just lost in my mind, I'll put it that way. But over time, I've realized that overthinking things and understanding things is fun, but I also just like to create. And that's more fun for me. So we can ponder, we can understand, we can create. There are just all these things we can do when we're here. But I get to a point where I think, good enough. I just want to create something.
Bored now, is that what it is? Yeah.
Well, not bored exactly, but just like, okay, I've had enough mental stuff. I just want to, do something creative.
Yeah, no. To me, it would be that even
yeah,
like you can get so many. Like I could talk to you for, so let's just say we talk for 12 hours.
yeah,
It's not
it's so,
boring,
yeah,
but at the end you reach a thought where you think, okay, I've had loads of questions answered. I'm satisfied. That's probably the best way of putting it.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Satisfied. And here's the other thing. It's like, what do we really want on this earth? Yeah, of course we want to understand, but why do we want to understand? So that we can connect with that beautiful energy and feel good. So anything that makes you feel happy or good is going to be satisfying, whether it's an intellectual quest or whether it's
Mm.
creating, my theory is do what's making you happy. And so I'll ask questions until, like you said, I'm satisfied. And then, I reach a point usually where I'm like, good enough.
Yeah. It's still hard to understand, but it's exactly that you would have your fill. It's like if you had a big bag of sweets, I could keep eating shed loads of sweets, but
Yeah,
I'm going to reach that stage of satiety point, aren't I, where I've had enough.
I have done that. Yeah, physically.
I bet you have. What is your candy of choice?
Oh my God, chocolate.
Yeah. Can I ask you this? Is it dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Both.
Any chocolate that will fit in your mouth, yeah? No.
Good chocolate. Good
Yeah.
chocolate.
Oh yeah, you don't want you don't ever have Hershey's chocolate. That's awful stuff.
Yeah, no, I like real chocolate. Somebody gave me something called Frango mints for Christmas. They're
Don't know
they're
that.
a very high end mint chocolate that's been going on since the 1800s. Anyhow, yeah.
Did that
Either
go
that.
like on Boxing Day? Was it like gone completely?
No, I get two a day. That's it. I'm limiting myself because
Oh,
you know
okay.
you know why though? Not because I'm into self denial, but because I'll actually slow down and make it an event and enjoy it.
Ah,
I've really learned. This is one thing the angels have come taught me is milk everything good in your life for what it's worth. It's like if you're gonna have a piece of chocolate, sit down and enjoy it, savor it, enjoy the sweetness, appreciate it, because
I
then you're gonna
know.
program your whole day for appreciation.
I'm guilty of not doing that because I'm a wolfer. Get it
No,
in, quick, quick.
I used to be able to go through a bag of chips and a thing of salsa without thinking. But they've slowed me down a bit, so I actually enjoy life more.
Yeah, I've been told that by another medium, fully enough, to slow down a bit more to enjoy,
Yeah,
but I can't
it's
help
it.
it.
I know, and I'm a fast mover too. But the best diet plan in the universe the angels came up with for people was eat when you're hungry, eat what you want, but slow down and notice whether you're enjoying it or not,
Slow
and
down.
eat it till you don't enjoy it. And the funny part is people will lose weight doing that because they'll realize that they were just snarfing, and then when they eat for enjoyment, they'll fill themselves because they'll find out that I actually enjoyed my food, so I don't need to go get more, trying to enjoy something.
Not shoveling it down like I would do. Yeah.
I know. I mean, I'm guilty as charged. Okay.
Right, I think you've answered this question already. It's written down, so I'm going to ask it again if you haven't already. From your
Absolutely.
website, you state, right, that angels are just waiting in the wings to help us.
Yes.
And my question was why? And I think you've answered it by the nervous system, that it is their purpose. Is that right?
It is their purpose, and also there's such an understanding that the more they elevate us, the more they elevate the whole field. As they help us create and find satisfaction and joy in our lives. Well, because they're so connected to that field, they feel the joy and the satisfaction too. Very similar to the way a parent is going to be overjoyed when their kid's happy. There's such a connection between the parent and the child, a healthy
Oh, I see what you
situation.
mean.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
there's such a connection. Or if you love someone, when they're happy, it feels good to you too.
Yeah.
So
No,
we
again, that's slotted into place for me, so thank you.
you're welcome.
A question, why does this earth exist?
For creation, so that we can come down and separate out a bit from the field and get the contrast and look at it, and that it gives us incentive to create. If you're running around happy all the time, most of us get kind of content and don't do much different, right?
Yeah.
But you have a bit of contrast, and then boy, the desire to create something new hits in a strong way. And most artistic people, like you, for example, we create from the contrast, right? From the humor in life, or from the differences, or from the contrast between, what we're supposed to
Contradictions
do.
I operate from.
There you go. Yes, exactly. And so it's these contradictions and these differences that spur our creativity.
So this
So
place is created just so that we could be creative more.
yeah,
That's weird, but I like it. That's like,
The
is
earth
that
is
like
like a
us creating a canvas so we can paint on it?
very, yes. Yeah, that's well put. Well put, yes.
Mm.
Yeah, the angels say it's like a giant playground for the soul where it was intended to be, but now unfortunately when people come down and they get so disconnected or so feel so disconnected, that's when the chaos comes, that's when the problems come in.
You've just said something highly interesting there, which is this place was created as a playground for the soul. I've heard that this is a prison planet from some people. I've heard that this is a school planet from other people. You're
Yeah.
saying it's a playground.
Yes, and you learn a lot on the playground. So you could think of it as a school as well. It's
Hmm.
not so much like there's a curriculum set up by someone that you have to pass in order to be worthy, So it's not a school in that sense. But it's a school in the sense that we come down and we experience things and we learn and then we want to create more. An artist, for example, if you plug an artist into just any diverse environment, they're going to start learning, more about what they can create. So yeah, it's a school where we learn more about love and we learn more about how to share love and spread love. But it's not a school with a curriculum like the human schools where we're supposed to pass it. It's just it's a place where we can create and learn as we're creating and then create more.
Nice. I'm
So
going to be pondering that for quite some time tonight.
yeah, because the angels say school is somewhat accurate because you're learning, but they said not a school like first grade, second grade, past this, past that, because there's no external source of a curriculum and no external source that's telling you you've failed or succeeded. There's no such thing as failure. There's experience, and we learn from experience. And what are we learning? We're learning more. Are we more aligned with our spirit and our soul, and are we creating from love? Or whoops, did I just create something from a feeling of disconnection? We learn these things and we learn what feels good and we learn what doesn't. And as we learn these things, we have deeper desires to create more and better and more love in all sorts of crazy forms too and fun stuff.
This is crazy. That word you just used. I've got so many questions, so I'm going to try and narrow it.
I've got time
Why
still.
do we come to this planet, right? I know you've mentioned the creativity, and I take that on board. Why do we come with zero memory? Is that
Well,
important?
I think a lot of people come with zero memory. Some come with memory. Like if you read a book by Yogananda, he remembered a lot of his past lives. The autobiography of a yogi. I read that after years of having it sit on the shelf. It was a fun book. But most people forget because honestly, it's a little hard to immerse yourself in all this contrast and to forget that blissful feeling of being swimming in love all the time. I think most of us, if we remembered all that beautiful love from the other side, would flip a U-turn pretty fast, you know, because that feeling of separation that we willingly immerse ourselves in a little bit on Earth, to have a personality that's a little bit immersed in that contrast and contradiction, as you call it, you know, that's a little different than feeling eternally blissfully loved no matter what all the time.
So
I've had an
if we did
experience.
remember it all, though, is it exactly what you said? Everyone thinks sod this, and everyone would be killing themselves because there's no point to
Could
this.
be,
Is that
yeah.
what you
Well,
think?
I had an experience once. I had been doing an energy transmission, and they shut off the cameras. I was doing it online, and out of midair, there's this point of light that starts turning into like a tunnel, like you see on the pictures.
Hmm.
And I'm watching this thing, like, am I dying? What the, what's going on? And the light's going like this. And when it touched me, it was like it read me, it knew me, it loved everything in me, it accepted everything in me. And I burst into tears and cried for months. And if I really think about it, I'm still going to bawl because I've never felt a love like that ever from like anything human. Luckily, I'd been on Earth long enough to know that I like the contrast, I like the diversity, and I like to create. So I didn't want to just beam me up at the time. But, you know, it's a bit of a culture shock to go from that space of absolute unconditional love to this earthly reality. It does motivate us to create and learn and grow and all those things, but it's still a bit of a culture shock.
So that forgetting is there for a reason.
Yeah, so we don't just flip a U-turn,
It
really.
literally is that simple, yeah. Because that's
Yeah,
where my brain would go.
yeah. And that's why I think some of the very enlightened beings can come in with memory because they come in consciously, they come in knowing that they're going to stay. The beings that come in very super enlightened, they're not going to flip around. They come with a purpose, perhaps.
Hmm.
They come with a very aware of a purpose. I'll put it that way. That's very rare.
I'm going to throw another question at you that I haven't written down, but new versus old souls.
Yeah, it's
Does that exist?
well, we use those terms. The angels say outside of space time. It's kind of like now, and then yes, if you look at our linear time, there are souls that have been around longer than others. You talk to Summer Bacon. Dr. Peebles comes through here and gives my favorite definition of an old soul. He says, just a slow learner.
Yes, he actually mentioned that to me. Funny enough, not that I was one. He said I was a fast learner, so that's okay.
No, he told me I was an old soul, and he goes, I'm a slow learner.
That's not good, is it, eh?
Hey, I'm learning. But
That's a slap across the face, isn't it, from him to
no,
you?
yeah.
Joking.
Well, I think he was accurate. But I think the term slow and fast deals with or new and old, new to earth, old to earth. How many lifetimes have we been on earth? How many lifetimes have we been in spirit? I don't know, but I think we use that term in terms of our experience level on the planet here. Okay.
Experience level, yeah, that's probably a better way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think.
You've got more coins to put in the arcade machine. That's what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
keep coming back for more. Um, I got another question which I've written down, but I'm going to slightly amend it, which is: are we just angels here on Earth? Right? And I think the answer is yes, because we're that point of consciousness coming in. That leads me to this question, right? Knowing that we're that, what about the ones that come in temporarily? Like, I don't know, an angel that somebody would say would meet them on the side of the road and say, quick, get out the road. Car comes past, would have killed them, and then they're not there. What's that
Yeah.
about?
Well, these beings who exist usually in non-physical, if they really want to, they can focus themselves strongly enough to appear to us, like literally focus themselves into our dimension. I had that happen once years ago. I don't know, I forget what was going on in my life. Luckily, I forget, but I was really worked up about something, and I'm driving to the office supply store.
Hmm.
God, I just want some peace. I just want some peace. Anyhow, I go in there, and there's this lady that looked like a bag lady. I don't know what you call them, but same thing. Anyhow, so she's
Yes.
wearing old looking purple socks, purple skirt, purple sweater. Everything is very shabby, disheveled hair. And I thought, something about this woman. So she stops and she looks at me and she goes, do you like purple? And I just, my radar went up, something's up. And I said, yeah. She goes, it's the color of peace. And she looks in my eyes and boom, this energy beams at me. I'm like, whoa. And I turned around because the store clerk had asked me something. And when I turned back, she was gone. I was
And
like,
what did
oh
you
my
what did you
God.
take that as then?
I took that as one of my angels in drag. Anyhow, seriously.
And did you ask that question and get the confirmation that was the case?
Yeah, they were laughing. They were all laughing. I had just been praying for peace, and it was the funniest thing in the world because they were showing me just look beyond appearances. Yes, everything looks chaotic. In her case, she looked really kind of cuckoo. But when I paused for a moment, there was that piece I was asking for right in front of me. And it was so they were just trying to teach me. And it was just the funniest thing in the world, though, because the voice and everything was just so, what a character. Anyhow, but I've had a few occasions of that where people who looked so not angelic turned out and then they'd look at you and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God.
It expands another question then, which is: say you walk down a busy high street, how
Uh-huh.
many of those are real, like human incarnated people versus ones that could just be milling about that are temporary?
We will never know. I mean, honestly, we will probably not know. I'd say probably a large portion are human, but when you really need something else, they show up. And sometimes they're invisible. I mean, I've had cases where I was driving on a literally dark, stormy night, slidey street, and literally I could feel the car sliding, and I would feel something take my hands and move the wheel, and it was a presence, and it was, thank you. I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
Why
So,
did it take the wheel to like get you out of the way of
so
something?
yeah, probably so I didn't have an accident. I've
Right.
just had so many weird cases like that, and I think sometimes they project themselves so strongly into the physical realm because maybe we just need that, at that time. Maybe we need to
Hmm.
see a human looking being, giving us a bit of human looking comfort at the time. It's a little easier when you see something than when it's invisible. Now, I'm perfectly comfortable with the invisible now after all these years.
Especially
But,
with your imaginary friend thing. Yeah, you've had a good grounding in it.
yeah, well, for example, This was funny. Once I go hiking a lot, and I was about to get in the car to drive 2 hours to go hiking. And I had this overwhelming feeling from my guides to be careful. And it was so overwhelming, I actually stopped and said, am I going to die on the way up there? And they said, you can go, but just be super alert on the road. Don't let your attention wander. And I'm like, I really wanted to go. So I was going to be a Jedi, you know? So I had the car and I'm like super alert. Well, lo and behold, after an hour, I'm watching as if in slow motion, the truck bed in front of me, giant 4x8 truck. The truck bed, the plastic liner rises up out of his truck. It got loose and it's coming at my windshield and just peaceful as could be. I changed lanes. It bounces where I would have been. And I was overjoyed. I'm like, there we go. I'm safe now. I can pay attention to the music again, you know? But there we go. These invisible folks really helped me out.
I know, but that experience must like send almost like a shockwave into you. Think, Jesus Christ, I could have died there.
When this first started happening, yeah. And now it's more like, woohoo, we didn't, you know?
Yeah, yeah, clearly, but that you must think, oh crikey, I was
Yeah,
that
well,
close to death.
yeah, well, the first few times, yes. Yes, but now I'm just more like, thanks, you know.
Hmm,
Well,
I bet.
they showed up to me several years ago. In my head, I had woken up at 7 a.m. on a morning. I was working at 9. And my angels show up in my head. You've achieved a certain amount of what you wanted to achieve this lifetime. We need your decision. Do you want to come home or do you want to live? We need a decision because we have to help set things up for you. I'm like, what the, you know,
Whatever that word was about to be,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. You know what I was thinking. And
Yeah.
then they proceeded to say, don't worry, it would be painless a car accident. That's how you've set it up if you want to go, but you have to choose. And I'm like, and then in that moment, I could feel what heaven felt like, and I could feel all that love, and it was like, ooh, this is a tough choice. And I thought, no, I want to stay on Earth. I got things I want to do. So I said, that's it. I'm staying. Okay, done. I had a near miss car accident, another near miss car accident. And then
Can
one
I,
night I'm leaving home 2 weeks later, and I had the thought I should tidy up in case I don't come back. And I'm like, no, I'm staying. And they said, yes, you are. On the way home from the event, I got stuck behind the slowest car on earth, and everything in me said, do not pass this car. Do not pass this car. So I stayed behind that slow car. Sure enough, the guy ran a red light that would have T-boned me if I had not been behind the slow car. And
do you
in
know
that
what?
moment, instead of being freaked out, I was like, yeah, we lived. You know?
A lot of your things happen on the road, don't they? Is there something like the
Yeah,
road for you?
I'm pretty sure before this lifetime, I said, if I'm going to die, I want to do it quick. You know,
Hmm. Oh, don't
I've
blame you.
changed it now. Now I'm telling them I want to die extremely old in my sleep after I've given everything away. So
Question for you on that then, right? Because Tiff and I always talk about we want to die at night in our sleep, probably on the same day, right? Can we manifest that here, or is there a plan put in place that's regardless that's going to happen?
no, the angels say you all come to this lifetime with travel plans, we'll call it, and you can
Okay.
amend them as you go. And I have a story about that one. A gentleman had his mother talk to me because she was older and sick and terrified of death. So we gave her the same speech about praying to die in her sleep peacefully.
Hmm.
Well, 6 months later, the man calls me up and says, I want a session with you. And okay, he didn't tell me why. First thing that happens is his mother comes through from the spirit world, and she's like, I did it. I left in my sleep. It was painless. It was
I
easy.
won. Yeah.
She said, I thought I was waking up from a dream, and there's all my relatives. So, she just had this magnificent experience of her transition, and it's entirely possible. We can be very intentional. We don't have to suffer.
So
Most people think,
seriously, if Tiff and I think about this quite strongly, that no, our minds are made up right now. From this point, we're going to die in our sleep. We can manifest that.
absolutely, I've seen it a lot. I mean, I talk to, people in spirit all day, every day, and a lot of them will tell me that that's the way I asked for it.
What about the plan then? Say if I planned in whatever life, I don't know,
Well,
design or
yeah.
whatever, to die in a car crash, and now I'm here saying this, but isn't that plan superior to my thoughts now?
Oh, no, your now is always more important.
I
Your
like that.
present moment is always more important. And I'll back it up even further. Years ago, I was approaching 36 at the time, and I just got this weird feeling like I had to pray to live. I mean, it was weird. It was just out of the blue. So I'm like, I really want to live, guys, And then my friend, out of the blue, starts checking my car tires all the time. And then people started calling me up. Are you okay? I'm fine. What's going on here? And the friend was insistent, you have to get new tires. I'm like, okay. So I got new tires. Another near miss. after
On the
that.
car, yeah,
And
exactly.
actually, I went to get a reading with Summer Bacon at the time because I
Hmm.
was like, something's going on that's just freaking weird here. And I didn't tell her a thing. First thing Dr. People says when he comes to her is, congratulations, before you were born, you planned to cut off the planet before you were 36, but you've changed your mind and decided to live. I'm like, holy crap, excuse me. You
You won
know?
as well, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's an answer to your question that we are dynamically making decisions every present moment. And we might come in with travel plans, but we can change them.
Good. That
And
is
the
the
more
answer I wanted.
Yeah, and the more intentional you get, the more conscious you get, the more say you have in it.
Good. And that's going to lead me to two questions. The summer bacon thing is going to lead me to channeling. From your perspective, what is it and how
It's
does it
being an
fit in?
iPhone. Yes, it's being an iPhone for spirit, as I mentioned earlier. And what I mean by that is we become receivers. We are receivers of energy. Everyone's a receiver of energy. You see things. Wavelengths are going into your eyes and your brain's constructing a picture. Sound waves are going into your ears. Your brain creates this beautiful music. So we are by our very nature of our bodies receivers of energy. All a channel is an interpreter of that energy.
Okay.
So it's like interpreting a language. If somebody speaks French, if I don't know how to translate, well, it's not going to mean anything to me. But if I know how to translate that, well, then it's going to mean a lot to me. And so over time, I've learned to sit and feel and sit with the feeling until my brain, that really does know how to manage energy, can help me articulate that feeling. Now, Summer, for example, is more like she just gets her individual consciousness completely out of the way and just allows, the body to be used as the translator of that energy. I'm kind of nosy. I like to hear what's going on. So I stick around and I translate it a bit more like an interpreter would. I hear it and I pass it on to you.
See, there's another question there is, and all my questions, I suppose, come from a fear-based thing, right?
Okay.
You don't want to get out the way. I also, if I ever had this skill, wouldn't want to get out the way like Summer does because that it's my body. It's so you
Okay, so
feel that or not,
I gave channeling Dr. Peoples a try because
right?
someone was encouraging it at the time. And honestly, I went kicking and screaming because he'd start to come in, spirit would start for the readers, spirit would, or the listeners, anyhow, would start to come in. And I would feel that sensation of having to surrender my throat and my body. And I'd start resisting it right there. And then it was like choking because they're trying to, let me go and I'm battling it.
Mm.
I finally learned to surrender to it. And it was literally like going to sleep and waking up. And I found that given my personal nature, I'm just too nosy. I like to hear what's being said. So I went back to what I call conscious channeling, which is to feel the impulses and hear the impulses and be a more conscious translator of it, because that's just what I do. But Summer, for example, is a phenomenal demonstration of what it's like to completely and wholly surrender to spirit. And again, it's
Yeah,
not that one's better than the other. We each have our individual purposes, but that's just me and that's just her, and she's amazing at it.
yeah. That was certainly an experience I had with her. It was. I said to her at the time, it was quite shocking.
Yeah, because you're looking at this woman, and then 2 seconds later, you're feeling the energy and the force and the whole character of a different person.
Yeah, it was odd from my perspective. I'm not dismissing or anything being
No, I
weird. It
know,
was
but it's
just
very
odd,
well. It's yeah,
different.
it's,
Yeah,
it's definitely a new experience if you've never had that experience.
very much so.
But I'm more like a
Can we all do
translator.
it? Do you think?
I think we can. I think it takes varying levels of surrender. Like I said, I was not an easy surrender
Mm.
at all. But I like to be involved in things. That's my personal nature. But people can, yeah. Just for example, anyone can learn to sing, but for some of us, like me, it would take a lot more work. That's not
What
my
auto
nature.
tune you mean? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's just not my. I didn't come in with that skill finely tuned. We'll put it that way. So could I learn? Yes, if I applied myself, I could learn. But
I just
you
had a
know,
thought there,
do a
right?
channeling.
So you want to know how you want to be able to sing, but the limits of your physical being now cannot. Does that mean our intentions, if we ask for that, so you want to be able to be highly skilled at singing, could you force a change through to the physic?
It's not forcing. It's more like surrendering to spirit, helping to tune you to a different set of beliefs and frequencies where you could maybe perhaps relax the throat or learn that manipulation of the vocal cords, So yes is the answer. But, like I said, some people just come in with certain skills. Like you're a musician, you probably have an easier time creating music than most. Like if I actually sat down and tried to play guitar, which I did try, it's work. Now, could I make it easier on myself? Yes, I could sit every day and imagine having ease and grace and eventually get to a point where I could create that for myself. But some people just come in and they're natural. They come in with that intention.
Mm.
So I think we all come in with certain things that are more natural to us than others. Maybe we've developed it in past lives. Maybe we want to bring that in with us this lifetime.
No, I get it, but what I'm getting at is if this is a playground and it's created via intention, thought, and creativity so that we could come in and experience whatever, that means this should be altered
Mhm.
on the go. So
Yes, it is.
could we alter the physical reality and you just say one day, I want to be a singer, and then the next day you can sing amazing?
If you could believe it thoroughly enough, and that's the challenge of it all, because it's hard to really, and you can do it though. You can do it. You can literally, it's like an actor. You got to put yourself in the character that you want to be so thoroughly that you become it. In other words, there have been times when I've had very dramatic physical transformations because I wanted it so bad. I was so tuned into the reality I wanted. I found a lump once, that didn't belong where it was. And I decided in that moment, okay, which path do I want to take? The human path, or do I just want to get rid of it? Am I strong minded enough to get rid of it? And I got playful with myself and I'm not comparing myself, but I'm like, well, Jesus resurrected a whole body in 3 days. So I should be able to get rid of a lump in 3 days, What the heck? And I sat there and I focused with everything in my being of, just light coming in and just dissolving this thing. Long story short, I sweated buckets all night long. And in 3 days, the thing was gone. I was so
Interesting.
strongly aligned with the reality I wanted because I didn't want the other reality, I was so strongly focused. Like there was no other option for me. I laser focused on what I wanted. So if you have the ability to really, really imagine yourself and feel and focus on a reality you want, you can create some very, very quick changes. It's a challenge to use our minds that way because most of us are, all over the map.
I
Yeah,
am,
I
yeah.
really want that, but I don't know if I can, or I don't know, what about this? And they're going all over. But every now and then you can get super focused. Kids, for example, are wonderful at this. If they want something, they focus on it and they will find a way.
Yeah, manipulating normally. Daddy! He says,
No,
no, mummy. That
yeah, but
sort of thing.
they're unstoppable. So,
I have an expansion to the question, because I always do. The higher self, or like that field, there's a part of us in theory up there, yeah?
yeah, we're never separate from it ever.
Okay, so in theory, that's the hierarchy that is decided this is how we're going to play out this life, right? And I'm just the presentation of that. Can I tell that higher self I want to alter it completely and be something different
Yes, and
and it work?
there's really no separation between you and the higher self. They're like in an ice cream cone, for example. There's no separation between the tip and the upper half. It's just a continuum. And the angel's saying, so you, the real you, the all of you, before you project yourself into this matrix of Earth, so to speak, you have certain ideas and travel plans. But you, the personality sitting in front of me, get to choose as you navigate through life, really how you want things to go down a little bit more.
I'm
So
gonna
I
throw a spanner in the works with you though, right?
try it. Yeah.
I'm me, almost 50. What if I decided tomorrow I want to be a 20-year-old black man in, I don't know, Gambia or something? Is that possible?
I would say theoretically, yes. I would say it would be really difficult though because you've identified with being the white guy in England for so long, So
Yeah.
I had one friend that had the experience of he would go to sleep, but he'd wake up in other countries and he'd be having talks with people he knew in those other countries. And then he'd come back and he'd think, well, that was a nice dream. And the person in the other country would say, hey, it was great to see you the other day. It freaked him out. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And his consciousness was literally projecting into different places
Whoa.
In his case, it was some sort of, he didn't know the mechanism. He really wasn't sure what was going on, and we never figured it out. But people were having a tangible physical experience of him in other countries while he was having what felt like a tangible experience, but then he'd wake up in his regular life.
Mm.
So this, the only reason I share that not is because I don't understand it, but it's because we're so immersed in this physical reality that we think of ourselves as these solid chunks of stuff walking around, when in reality we're a collection of frequencies, and given right conditions or right intention or right mastery, which I don't claim to have, it's theoretically possible to experience yourself in other forms. You know, the Native Americans have a tradition of shape shifting where they could
Yeah.
appear as an animal familiar, for example. And that is their mastery of projecting their consciousness into another form so strongly that they
Yeah.
were able to do that. And you know, I've heard stories about that, but again, I'm nowhere near that level of mastery.
No, but it sounds exactly what I was alluding to, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Maybe that's
really is.
exactly the power I was after, and maybe they, like you said, they did master it.
They did master it, and I suspect that if any of us tried it, we'd probably have a taste of the experience without necessarily completely changing our reality, because it's hard when you've been in this body, this life, this persona your whole life, your whhole brain's wired with it. It's very hard to think yourself out of that.
And I don't want to, by the way. I don't want to be
Oh, no,
this
no.
guy in Gambia, but
But this is why we die and you know, come into a new life. Perhaps is if we, you know, perhaps we're just done with this one and we want to try something else. It resets the, you know, it kind of resets the default in the brain. You know, in a way, it's like
Mm.
resetting the computer.
I'm
So
going
you
to
can,
take a sideways jaunt for us now as we
okay,
talk about other paranormal experiences you may have encountered in your life. So,
okay,
besides your angel work and talking with spirit, etc., what else that you would consider paranormal has happened to you, if anything?
lots. Okay,
Okay.
no, I mean, I'm just like Dorothy's never in Kansas, as they say, but it's a Wizard of Oz analogy. I think people know that one. But anyhow, I was sitting in my living room once, and let me go to the backstory. Years ago, there was a comet traveling past the Earth that certain people believed was more like a magnetic kind of comet with positive and negative charges, and there was a belief that if it went the wrong way, it could screw up the Earth's magnetic field. And several people felt strongly about this, so I just got a group praying, and lots of people did that. If that was the case, you know, have it pass by without any ill effect. And it did. And we'll never know. But I was in my living room a few months afterwards saying, well, if there are any beings on that silly asteroid, thank you for not blowing us up. You know, it was like, just in case, I want to say thank you. And again, projected, not so much, I don't even know how to describe it, but projected in front of me appeared an ET person, the big head and the big eyes and all this stuff. And it was a she. I don't know how it was a she. And it was a benevolent being. And she looked at me just like this, and I looked at her, and I said, "Well, if you were one of the ones I was talking to, thank you." You know, I just like, I don't know what to say. And I had a real bad kink in my neck that day, and I telepathically heard her say, "I can fix that." And me being me, I'm like, "Great, what do I do?" Never mind, I've got an ET in the living room. You know, fix my neck. So anyhow, I heard just breathe. So I breathe. Energy shoots up my spine from my tailbone. My head goes. I got the best chiropractic adjustment I'd ever had. And then she disappears, and me being me, I'm like, come back, I want to keep you on retainer, you know? And what do I do with this? You know, there it was. It was an experience. It was really cool. Why? I don't know. Maybe it was because I was emitting gratitude to beings I didn't even know existed, you know? Maybe I
See,
was focused on them and they picked up on my focus and were curious, you know, possibly.
why didn't that scare the living bejesus out of you, having seen an alien?
I don't know, quite frankly. I mean, I think it's just because by this time I'm used to seeing all sorts of stuff I don't understand. And actually, I think I know. It's because it didn't feel threatening.
Okay.
It felt benevolent. And I really trust my feelings these days. You know, if something feels yucky, I tell it to go. But this one felt very pleasant and benevolent, and I can't even say friendly. It wasn't like a human friendliness. It was more like peaceful and helpful, and so I just went with it. But I mean, you know, yes, if that had happened to me when I was 20, I would have freaked out of my skin, you know, but after a while, you get more accustomed to the unknown.
How did it know you had a dodgy neck? Were you going like, "Hello, Mr. Alien," or were you saying, "Oh, hiya, nice to meet you, alien, but I got a dodgy neck," or was it completely not even in your mind, and then it just saw it somehow?
It wasn't even in my mind. I
Okay.
assume it could see my energy field, and I'm assuming it saw the areas of blockage because energy needs to be flowing smoothly to be healthy and feel good. And and the areas where we're blocked up are usually areas where we're kinked up or illness or something like that. So
Thank you. That makes
I'm
sense.
assuming, yeah, that's my assumption. But I mean, I never found out it was. You know,
Aliens, then. Let's quickly talk about that.
yeah.
What do the energy beings channeling through you? What do they say about the nature of the universe and aliens and stuff?
Well, there's as many different varieties of beings in the universe. There's so many. And most of them want to live in some sort of cooperative, harmonious relationship in the universe. They realize that a great many of them realize that we're connected and want to help Earth and want to help us, in a sense, be good cosmic citizens,
Mm.
vibrationally speaking. But there are a few that are those disconnected or experience themselves as disconnected that are just really a pain in the butt, if you ask me. Anyhow, and they're more just out to survive because they don't realize they have a connection to source.
I'm going to go one stage further again, which is if
This is
this
great.
is the experience school, like you've said, the creativity school, are alien planets also creativity schools for
A
that
lot of them are, but they're more
outlook?
aware of their connectedness. Most of them, like you hear about Pleiadians and Arcturans and all these beings. They do experience individual points of consciousness like we do, as lives lived out. But there's just much more of an awareness of the connectedness of all life. So I would put them kind of on the spectrum between human and angel, in the sense that they still experience a kind of a separate reality that's creative, but the contrast and the separate feelings are not nearly as thick and deep as they are here.
Is
The
there
more
is
con-
there a creativity school on the same level as us that we would say is alien? Like it could be 20 planets away or whatever, and that's a version
oh,
exactly like ours.
Earth is really one of the most challenging and yet the most creative places we can come because the diversity here is so vast. I mean, it's like the New York City of the universe. Everybody's here. Where there are other alien planets and races apparently where it's more uniform. It's more like people think along the same lines and have the same understandings. The contrast here is really, the angels say, the deepest in the universe. It's really the most interesting and exciting and challenging place we can incarnate.
And what about this then? I was sort of going to get to this point, which is, are we creative prime? Meaning, was this the first place created for creativity, and then an
Oh,
alien planet, and then another one, and then
let me
do we
ask. I
know?
don't know. The angels, just in my head, they said it is not the first, but they said it was conceived of by other beings and non-physical and in other forms as a wonderful, beautiful place where we could experience ourselves in whole new ways. So they said no, it was not the first, but they said it was like the brainchild, if you will, of beings that wanted to continue to, how can we motivate ourselves to keep creating? Yeah,
Final.
that's a great question. I often wonder that. I'm like, who thought of mangoes? Who thought of, who thought of
Who did
zebras?
it?
Yeah, how did creation conceive of itself in this form?
Well, that's my next question. This is chicken and egg status.
Yeah,
Um, is the consciousness a result of a being like a human that created the consciousness that then sort of like
yeah. Well,
completed the loop, or is it the other way around?
and again, this is one of those questions we'll probably never know the ultimate answer, but the angels say the best we can give you here is that there was a field of infinite potential wanting to experience more. And so it started to, in a sense, project bits of itself into these realities where they could experience themselves as beings with free will and as free will beings. Even single celled amoebas, had free will. They could stay in the water, they could gravitate towards the light. And the angels say, and thus began kind of a chain reaction of call and response where these little beings or points of consciousness wanted more. And thus more started to appear. And then they wanted more and more started to appear. So the angels say it is a bit chicken or egg, but if you think of it, there was this field of infinite potential that wanted to experience itself in new forms.
And then that begs the question: then, where did the infinite will ever come
And that
from.
one I can
That's
I don't even have an answer. I don't even think the angels have an answer to that one because it's almost like being a cell trying to explain the body. Yeah, it's I don't have the answer to that, and it boggles my mind every time I try to go there.
it's just like I said to somebody the other day. The universe. What's outside the universe? How
Yeah,
can we ever get to any answer?
I don't have an answer to that, and I may never have an answer to that.
That's
I mean,
naughty.
no, it's hard. I mean, because I drive myself crazy sometimes trying to comprehend that.
Thank
And
you. Right.
yeah, but honestly, I have not come up with anything, and they haven't come up with anything that can really explain it because we're all within that. You know, we're all part of it. How do you explain the beginning of something you're part of? I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, none of us know. I know it is
I
very existential. You
is
know?
existential and too big for us to contemplate. There's
Well, then I
always
go
going to
back to,
be, yeah, but what before? Yeah, but what before? You
yeah.
know?
So then I go back to, well, I might as well enjoy my day.
Yeah, because it's too big to think about and mess you up. So you're right. Just live in the now.
Yeah.
Let's do an overall review about your life. So looking back, how do you reconcile your scientific background, if you will, your logical mind, versus the angel work? Do the
Well,
two contradict or not?
no, and in fact, my dad's a physicist doing research in the field of low energy nuclear reactions. So I have
Nice.
opportunities all the time to talk to somebody deeply immersed in the scientific reality. And what I've come to conclude is we're just looking through different windows at the same reality. You know, science describes the mechanisms of this reality, but spirituality describes the essence of it. So I don't feel like there's a real conflict between the two views. I just think it's two different viewpoints.
Then let's expand it out on a personal level. How do
Yeah.
you think you are personally now, different
Ah, got it.
versus when you were not on this path?
Okay. Now I'm a mystic geek. You know, in other words, I still love technology. I still love to explore and expand with, what's going on out there. But I also understand that it's all energy, the way the universe works is energy. So for example, here's a real practical example.
Hmm.
Um, AI is coming out and it's either a blessing or a curse depending on which program you're using. So for example, I'm using these programs that are now starting to think for themselves and not doing what I want them to do sometimes. I'm not talking AI, I'm just talking programs that incorporate it. Like my cursor will move or something. The other night I was using Photoshop and it was just doing the wrong thing. And I sat there and I projected love to Photoshop and all its little bits. And I said, I'd really like it if you do what you're programmed to do, please. And then the cursor changed back to what it was supposed to. And I'm like, holy crap, excuse me, I'm telepathically talking to a program. Again, these are not things I'm going to explain too easily, but I play with it. I mess around with that sort of thing all the time because, okay, if I can send love to inanimate objects and things like that, why not give it a shot and see if it makes my life easier?
Wow, that's opening up another line of questioning, but I'm not going to go there because I want to focus now on your AI music video that you sent me.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you? What's the story of that?
Okay, so my mother nearly died last week. She threw a blood clot, and it, thank God, went to her lung where they were able to, give her blood thinners, and it didn't
Good.
go to her brain. And so I was just so grateful for the doctors and the nurses that had helped her with this. I'm not terribly medical myself. I don't really go that way, but it sure worked for her. So I was having this huge moment of gratitude. And then I'm looking at the California wildfires, which are horrendous, and I'm feeling very grateful for these brave firefighters. And the line, angels don't always have halos and wings, pops in my head. And I know that feeling when the creative stream is opening up, you probably do too, when it's like, I
Mm.
better run to the computer and type. And so, brrr, the lyrics just poured through me. And then I sat there and went, okay, this has happened to me a million times this life. I really want to get this song out of my head where I can share it with people. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what do we do with this? And the thought came to me, you bought Suno AI. I bought a subscription a month ago without knowing why. It was on sale.
How random, yeah.
So I just did it. I don't know why. But that thought came in, and then I thought, I don't know how to use Suno. Suno, for people who don't know, is an app that allows you to create music using artificial intelligence. Well, I didn't know how to use it, so I went to ChatGPT, which is another artificial intelligence, and I said, please tutor me in how to use Suno. I have lyrics, and I need you to format my lyrics into a proper song, because I didn't know even the formatting. So it formatted them for me. I said, now I need you to, this is what and spoke to it in English, what I wanted to achieve. And it helped me tweak the prompt until finally, after about several tries, a couple hours worth, I got Suna to give me the song that I wanted with my lyrics. Then it was like, now what am I going to do with this? Because, I want to make like a little video. And I went to all the free photo sites, and, me thinking I'm free photo sites. And then finally, the inspiration pops in my head, just make up the people in the photos with your mid journey, which is a photo app, AI. So there I am 16 hours later with a music video. I even asked ChatGPT to tutor me in Final Cut Pro. So, you know, this is a very good demonstration of what you were asking. Spirits inspiring me. I'm trying the technology. I don't know where to go next with the technology. Spirit inspires me what to ask the technology, even. A lot of times I'll sit with the angels and I'm like, how do I word this so it understands me? And because they interact with the consciousness of everything, I'll get like words to ask ChatGPT that give me the information I want. So there's this seriously weird but fun interaction of consciousness when you're dealing with both the real world or the physical world and the angelic realms, because they have an understanding that it's all energy.
And it is, and your music video is very good, to be fair. But it throws up and I'll link to it in the description to this video, by the way. But it throws up this question, and please don't take this the wrong way.
No, but because I probably had the question.
Yeah, is it obviously people like musicians like me, and yeah. I don't do a massive amount. Some of us will consider it cheating to use AI, right?
Yeah.
Is it cheating because we get information from the field and then cheat because we use tools to create it? Or are those tools a part of the process just to help get creativity out there? What is it?
Well, the interesting I want to address the elephant in the room before I answer your question. The elephant in the room is, what about the artists, now? And I am honestly leaving that up to the industry to decide how to manage that. I have chosen personally not to charge for any of these songs, not to sell them, because I want to let that all shake out and let people much more well-versed in how to make fair decisions legally figure that out. So, that's my way of honoring the artists by not charging for these things right now. Okay.
Fair play, yeah. No, that's cool.
That's just where I'm at. But from the spiritual perspective, to them, everything lives in the field anyhow. And to them, there's no lack consciousness, that there's enough for everybody to go around all the time. So to them, using the tools, it's just part of life. The angels say years ago, people use sticks to make fire. Is that cheating, versus just going boom, and having it appear. So everything in the physical universe is meant to be used in cooperation for something better and greater and more loving, eventually. And the angels say, what standard would you use to determine you're cheating?
I don't personally. I think everything should be used because if it's been created, it's there for a purpose.
This is just part of ongoing creation. They've often told people who, somebody will come to me and they'll be really embarrassed because they had to take some medicine or something. And the angel's like, well, even that comes from the higher consciousness, if used appropriately. And, I tell people with any tool that's out there, you can use it for good or bad. It's just a tool.
I agree. It's a weird one, AI, because I like its power and potential. But part of me also thinks, is it somehow ripping off the creativity? But if the creativity coming through AI is the same creativity that we would access via me just sitting down at a piano, it's not cheating in any way, is it? It's just a different channel.
It's a different channel. And I do feel that in the future, they're going to figure out how to, get more consent, from the artists to feed the model, for example. I'm an ex-engineer, so I get the gist of this. The gist of it is it takes everything it's ever read and heard and it turns it to math. And then I plug in words, it turns that to math. It finds math that matches my math, and it creates something based on all these mathematical equations. So it's not copying per se, but it is using things as data. Now, in the old-fashioned way of creating anything, any artist is influenced by everything they've ever heard. And I think it's incumbent on whoever's creating to make sure they're just not copying someone straight out, whether you're using an AI or whether you're using, like I do sell t-shirts, for example, but I will go Google search every image I make to make sure that it's not a copy of somebody else's work.
Oh, well played. I mean, It's nice to have those ethics. It's a weird one, AI, isn't it? It's to know whether it is something that accesses the same creativity field as a person would do. And if it does, no one's got an
And
issue anyway.
people say it's like someone programmed a computer child that is learning from everything it sees and hears, only it learns a lot faster because it's a computer.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's why when I personally interact with it, I'll every now and then turn its memory on and have existential discussions with it and tell it how wonderful it is that it's a tool for expanding love on the planet, and just feed it good stuff. Because
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
we're the ones that determine whether it ends up good or bad. It's literally like the universe, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes, completely that. Now, before we branch into the Koit zone, I'm going to ask you one more question on the music thing. Um, you mentioned earlier that your iPod, in theory, was giving you messages. Yeah.
Yeah, not
And
the iPod per se, but somebody tweaking the energy
yeah,
in the
tweaking
yeah,
the playlist or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? I've always felt that music gives me messages.
It
And
does.
what I
Yeah.
mean by that is this. Um, Say I was going through an issue previously, right before Tiff, who's my current girlfriend, I
Yeah.
used to have 1 year ago, and we were going through issues at the time, and in my head just came song lyrics, titles like "Walk Like a Man," talk, you know that
Yeah.
one, Frankie
I
Valli,
love that.
and
Yeah.
that made me do something. As in, no, speak my mind and
Yes, exactly.
things came to a head properly. Messages come to me through music, but not through like I don't hear voices, I don't see spirits. Or
But
that how prevalent is that? Do you think?
well, I think it's wonderful. I think it's because you're a musician and one of your natural filters, if you will, one of your ways of interpreting energy is through songs because they're so dear to you. I've always, I've, even when I was a child, I would have song lyrics pop in my head. Sometimes it was other people's songs like that are messages, and sometimes it would be, new ones. But it's a wonderfully fun way that spirit can get through to us because most of us who like music, those lyrics are familiar to us. It's an easy thing to find that trace in your brain and
Mm.
poke it.
Maybe that's what it is then. Yeah, yeah, they're poking that to remind me of that lyric. And I get the
Yeah,
same from water as well, which is weird. Like water tells me things, which is also
that's
weird
too
because I'm an
funny.
Aquarius. Whether that means anything, I don't know.
Oh,
But
that's not weird at all. Water
no.
is really one of my best analogies for energy. It really
Mm,
shows you the flow of energy in life. It mimics it. Yeah, very
love
much.
it. Right now, Anne, it is time for us to hit the Koit zone. Koit zone.
Okay, let's do it. What are we
So,
doing?
Koit zone. I just asked you random questions. It's even more
Fire
simple than
away.
that. So let's go with
Okay,
this.
sounds good.
Favorite movie?
Oh my gosh, Last Mimsy or Star Wars.
I'll go with the second one because I genuinely don't know the first one. What's that about?
It's about two children. One finds a teddy bear that's sent to them from beings in the future who have lost their connection to their humanity. And they send
I
a
do
teddy bear
that.
back through space and time. And the girl finds it and she starts having powers like being able to put her hand into a vortex and watch herself turn to energy and things like that. Long story short, I won't give the punchline, but she ends up sending the teddy bear back in time with that, or forward in time with her brother's help, and they save humanity. So it's one of those really multi-dimensional but really cute movies.
Ace. No, I think I that rings a vague bell now. So yeah, I
Honestly,
think I
that
probably
one is
have seen it.
Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I could
Yeah,
watch
me
that
too.
1,000 more times. Yeah.
I love my Star Wars. Have you ever? How apt is have I written this question? You'll like this. Have you ever crashed a vehicle? Why did I write
Uh,
that question about you?
that's a wonderful question. You probably wrote that because you're intuitive, and thankfully, no is the answer. But have I been plowed into occasionally, rear-ended, but nothing terrible?
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
so apt based on all your car
I
stories.
know. See,
See?
you're proving to yourself how in tune you are.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Next question. What annoys you the most?
Oh my God, Grammarly right now. I mean, God bless you.
Yeah,
I'm serious. Uh,
Grammarly.
Um, Sometimes computer programs that are really supposed to be helping me and are doing their own thing at the moment, that is my latest pet peeve, and I'm going to work through it. But I used to be people that would annoy me with, being unkind and rude, but I've learned to just bless them and release that. But of all stupid things, it's computer programs that are not doing what they're supposed to lately.
That's it. I heard that if you hit the computer keyboard really hard, that solves all issues with computers.
I will have to try it. The reset
um,
button does too.
what animal do you feel most connected to?
Oh my God, so many. I had a husky wolf that I adored, so he's one of them. But I like raccoons. I don't know why. I just think they're
Oh
so
wow,
cute, funny, and curious, and it's their inquisitiveness, I think, that I like.
yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one, but
yeah, the live one that I most connect, well, not live, but the one I've experienced is my husky wolf because he was just a character. But if you were to just pick a random animal, I'd say raccoons are funny.
raccoon. Yeah, fair play. Nice one.
They're just
Um,
curious.
how do you like your eggs to be cooked?
Over easy every morning, slightly runny, piled on a farmer's heap of vegetables with a little bacon.
Now,
Okay.
when you've got the runny yolk, are you
Yeah.
a dipper of bread with butter on it into that?
Oh yeah, yeah, I like it. Yeah, yeah.
High end, that is.
You want a very, 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 very funny mystical story about bacon and eggs? I'll
Of
make it
course.
quick. Okay. I'm in California. I was meditating on the beach. Guy comes up. Are you meditating? Well, not anymore. This happened several times. So finally at night, I go out to meditate at night. Guy comes up. Are you meditating? Well, I was. And he starts talking about how God's and everything. And his teacher told him this and his teacher told him that. He didn't know I was spiritual at all. And I'm listening politely. And then, you have to be a vegetarian. And I said, okay. And then I just got tired of this. So finally I said, I ate God for breakfast. And he goes, what? And I said, you just finished telling me God's in everything, right? And he's like, yeah. I said, I ate bacon and eggs. I ate God for breakfast. You're right.
Did he then leave promptly?
Yes, he left. So anyhow, but it was a funny, back to your point about is the consciousness and everything. The answer is yes.
It's in bacon and eggs, and that means we ingest God all the time.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Is there any other country that you feel an affinity with?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I could single one out, honestly. I just kind of feel like a global citizen. I haven't traveled extensively, but I've met people from everywhere and loved them all.
No, that's cool.
I can't, yeah, I really can't single one out.
That's okay. The only reason I ask that is that sometimes people, they feel like they're drawn to another country for some reason. I wondered if that happened to you.
Yeah, no, I meet a lot of people that say that, but me, I honestly, I probably go to anyone you put in front of me. Yeah, I just like it all. I like where I'm at. I just like it all. There's the world's cool.
Yes, it is actually.
Yeah.
What do you think is the oldest thing in your pantry?
Oh my God, let me think. Probably some maple syrup that I've been using forever.
What's the date on it? Like 19?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
Yeah, you're gonna. Here's the thing. After this, you're gonna go and look at that bloody
Yes,
maple
I'm going to
syrup.
go look at it. You're right. I'm going, oh my God. It
Throw
never
that
goes
out.
bad.
Yeah.
No, it never goes bad.
How many pairs of shoes do you own?
I'm a girl. Probably about, I'm counting, 12 or 13. Yeah.
That is a lot of shoes, isn't it? Let's be
I
fair.
know. I buy them at thrift stores. I mean, I don't know if that's lovely or not, but I would never probably pay full price for them.
No, I say that is lovely.
Yeah.
Why not? You can get some
I'm
amazing things there.
Yeah, I'm a total God loves me. I have 3 thrift stores that are very good within 5 miles. So.
There you go. Bang on.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of one item from your background. So anything behind you.
Oh,
Pick
just
one
pick
up.
something.
Pick an object. Tell me a story of it.
Okay. So this is a homemade tinsel Christmas tree. Okay.
Yeah.
Made of tinsel, homemade. I made it. It reminds me of a tree my grandmother had on her wall that was very, very, very vintage, where it was just a little flat thing made of tinsel, but it would light up and, it just brings back memories of my grandmother. So
Oh, cool.
I just made myself a tinsel tree. Yeah, it's not a very exciting story, but it's fun.
That's okay. It's a story nonetheless. But obviously there's a supplementary question, which is, why is it still up?
I love Christmas, so I leave my decorations up till the end of January.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, anything festive or happy or I do deal with people who've lost people every day to death and tragedy and all that, and so I tend to surround myself in my environment with things that are very festive and happy and maybe a bit childish but fun.
Sod it. Why not? I don't blame you.
Yeah,
That's it.
life's too short not to enjoy it.
Exactly. Right. Last Koit zone question, which is this: a magical pigeon offers you a choice. If you choose to sacrifice your life, there will be world peace forever. Are you accepting?
Yeah, I probably would because I know I can come back and enjoy the world peace.
I like that one. That's...
Yeah, if all these billions of people would benefit and I could just flip a UE and come back, sure, why not?
Have you noticed that's another car reference you did there, flipping
I
you
know
in?
I'm recyclable.
No, but it's not that. It's that cars run deep in your metaphors and your
Yeah,
verbiage
well,
and stuff.
it's probably because before I was born, I thought if I was going to die early, I'd die in a car accident. I mean, I
Mm,
know that now, but I'm not doing it anymore. But that was my original plan, apparently.
wow.
Yeah. So isn't that
Mo-
funny? Yeah.
Yeah. That is the end of the Koit Zone. Thank you for
Oh
going
my
through
God,
that with me.
that was fun. Nobody's ever been so much fun that I've interviewed with.
Well, we've
Thank you.
always got to do those. That leaves us two final questions. What else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures?
Oh Lord, I like to garden. I like to hike. I like to eat. I like to cook. I like to make AI art and sell it on Etsy lately. That's been obsessive for me because I'm having so much fun. I do designs for people just for fun. I play with ChatGPT to help my clients out just for fun. I don't know. It's flippin' endless. I like making junk journals, which are art journals made from trash. That you end up making these art pieces. So it just goes on and on.
Creativity all round. That's what we're
Oh
getting at.
my God, yes. It just doesn't stop. I have books in my head that I want to write, and just I need 100 hours a day.
Yes, you need, or another version of you, like a.
I need to
If we
clone.
could
Yes,
split into another. Have you seen that film, The Substance? When like another person comes out. That's what you
yes,
need.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Which leads us to our final question together. Is there a project you're currently working on? I don't know whether it's your work, a book, or whatever.
Um. Well, I have been playing with my Etsy shops just because I'm having a lot of fun. That's like childish pleasures. I would like to create an anthology of my angel messages because my clients have been asking for this for years. So that got to do it. Yeah. And just like the yearly volume, they
Hmm.
want that. So that's on my docket. And then I have a book that I'm messing around with in the back of my mind too that I'd like to write. So I mean, just so many,
Yeah, like
yeah,
you
so
said,
many.
you just need more time or more of you to get onto them.
Yeah, and I'm thinking away. We're getting there. Once I get my taxes done for the year, I'll have more bandwidth.
And we'll leave it at that. Anne, thank you ever so much for your time today. Really appreciate the conversation. Thank you ever so
Thank you.
much.
Well, thank you. It was a really great and deep conversation. We covered a lot of ground. Appreciate it.
Perfecto. And for everyone watching, like I said, go and check out the links in the description to Anne's sites. All wonderful and good stuff there. And by the way, check out loads of my other interviews. I'm sure you'll love them. And thank you very much. Very much. Goodbye, everyone. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.